Hello, hello. Welcome to the Liberation Hour. Greetings, comrades, and thank you for tuning into WRFU, Radio Free Urbana, on 104.5 FM. This is the Liberation Hour, a Marxist-Leninist talk show about current events, films, and theory, and I'm your host, Comrade Felicity, last name redacted. You can probably look it up, though, so... Anyway, all right. WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign online community. Views expressed are those of the speakers and are not intended to represent WRFU UCIMC. Okay, folks, hello, welcome. Welcome to the Liberation Hour. A few announcements before we get started with current events. We have a launch coming up, actually. It is, let me see here. It is Red Youth Rising, which is launching on tenants organizing. So, folks, if you are interested, if you're in a tenant union, if you're looking to get involved in a tenant union, if you are under the age of 28, or even over the age of 28, get in contact with Red Youth Rising and let's start organizing. Let's do it. Affiliated with the American Party of Labor. So, if you're interested, let's go. Come on, organize. Let's do it. All we have to lose is our chains. Every tenant deserves a union. Hello. Thank you. All right. Next up, Labor Talks. I will be hosting in about 2 months on September 24th at 6 p.m. at Channing Murray on the Urbana side of the University of Illinois campus. I will be hosting Labor Talks. I'm going to be talking about this every week leading up to the first session event. This is specifically a place for residents of the Urbana-Champaign area to come in and actually openly talk about leftist ideas. We're talking communism, honey. We're talking communism. And so if you're interested, if you want to learn more about Marxist-Leninism, if you are interested in organizing, getting part of a union if you're not part of a union, if you're interested in becoming part of a tenants union and you're not part of a tenants union, come to Labor Talks. Learn more about leftism, learn about some theory, discuss with your neighbors, talk to me. It will be recorded, however, faces will be blurred, so your identity will be private unless you choose otherwise. Okay, now that we are past the announcements, let's get started with the climate update. I have a couple things for you today. They're going to probably make you a little mad, so you might want whatever squishmallow you have next to you to scream into, perhaps, maybe a little stress ball. First up, we have the Elon AI data centers in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, you may be asking, Felicity, comrade, what is that? And if you've been living under a rock or you're just not online, which I get, I wish I wasn't sometimes, the Memphis, Tennessee data centers are being illegally built by Elon Musk next to historically black and poor community. The problem here, if you are not up to date with theories of environmental racism or actual practices of environmental racism, this is environmental racism. I say, quote, from The Guardian, that's where he's building a massive supercomputer to power his company XAI, that being Memphis, Tennessee, I believe. Yes, Memphis. Community residents and environmental activists say that since the supercomputer was fired up last summer, it has become one of the biggest air polluters in the country. But some local officials have championed the billionaire, saying he is investing in Memphis. Okay. This is so incorrect, actually. He is not investing in Memphis. In fact, building it strategically, building this data center right where black people live, who have been historically victimized by companies who are looking to build air polluting structures, whether it be an oil refinery or other such things that pollute a lot. They are historically built next to black and brown neighborhoods. I wonder why that is. There's no wondering anymore. It is because these people are racist and they do not value the lives of black and brown people. I say, quote from The Guardian, it is appalling that XAI would operate more than 30 methane gas turbines without any permits or any public oversight, said Amanda Garcia, a senior attorney for the Southern Environmental Law Center. XAI's failure to disclose that is running dozens of these polluting turbines at its South Memphis data center has left Memphians in the dark about what is being pumped into the air they breathe every day. This is a problem on multiple levels, and this is why community solidarity is so important, because people like Elon Musk do not care about you. They do not care about what's going on, about who's being polluted. They care about making a lot of money. And if there's one thing, actually, no, he's not even good at making money. I'm not even going to say that Elon Musk is good at making money because most of most of his quote unquote inventions are like government subsidized. Like he gets so many tax breaks from the American government to do what exactly? Question mark. And the answer to that would be polluting neighborhoods. Full of innocent people who had absolutely no idea this was happening. And this is why, as communities, kind of what we really need to be doing right now is building solidarity with each other and finding out ways that we can together stop things like this from happening. Because billionaires just straight up don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about what's happening to you. They don't care about the air that you're breathing, the water you're drinking. They don't care. We have seen time and time again that it does not matter how many... There is a humming sound. I can't figure it out right now. Sorry if that's bothering you. I just heard it. Like this sound is not bizarre. I guess it's part of being in a studio. Anyway, sorry for getting distracted. Basically, the point here is that this data center, I know that there has been a lot of hubbub about it on the gram, on the Instagram, and I want to say that it should be talked about everywhere. People right now are being victimized directly by Elon Musk. Actually, my own partner was fired from his job because of Elon Musk's Doge cuts. He was fired 2.5 months early, just out of the blue. He got an email from him, not from directly from Musk, that would be insane. He got an email after business hours saying that he was fired from his position, effective immediately. And so that is just one tiny drop in the ocean in comparison to what Elon Musk is doing now, which is illegally running this data center, which is causing so much more harm than it ever could good. And I'm just gonna say it: if AI is causing this much harm, not only to people but to the planet, it is not actually a useful tool or invention for people to. Sorry, I had to turn down the gain there. It is actually not a helpful tool for people. In fact, it is hurting more people. And we, honestly, going back and forth, trying to both sides. My silly gain. Oh, shit. Sorry, I can't swear on air. Oh, shoot. Anyway, AI is not actually there to help you. It is there to make people money. And the fact of the matter is that these data centers are doing so much more harm, as we can see how much they pollute, how much water they take up to actually even run. And I cannot fathom being a community member in Memphis right now, trying to organize around this topic, and people are coming up and saying, well, actually, this is going to be so good for the economy. No, it's not. It's not good for the economy when you can't breathe. Hello? So how is it going to be good for the economy when Elon Musk decides, oh, you know what, I'm just going to pick up and go do this somewhere else? Because, A, that would be a good thing, of course, because they're not running the data center. But this is what companies can also do. They can just leave a place if they don't want to actually operate there anymore. So at this point, the argument is moot. It is moot. And so this data center, what we need to be doing right now is rallying around the people of Memphis and informing people and educating people and trying our darndest, I didn't say a swear word, trying our darndest to support these people in their efforts to kick Elon Musk out of their town, him and his dirty data center, his dirty data center. I wanted to say a swear word there again, but I can't. From polluting these people's lives, literally their lives. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm still learning how to use this. Sorry. Okay, moving on to the Delaware River fracking. Now, if you don't know what fracking is at this point, that's okay. I kind of still don't either. It's basically terrible for the environment. And here is a quote I will be reading from one Hurdle. Fears that the Trump administration is looking for ways to lift a long-standing ban on fracking for natural gas in the densely populated Delaware River Basin, which includes part of Pennsylvania, have prompted environmentalists to seek public support for commitment to. Why is there music playing? Anyway, for commitment to defend the regulation. Another quote, environmentalists say that allowing the industry to drill in Pennsylvania's part of the watershed would risk contaminating drinking water for some 15 million people, including in Philadelphia and Trenton, New Jersey, with toxic chemicals used in fracking. The critics point to many instances of air and water pollution in heavily fracked areas such as southwest Pennsylvania, and they say that increased production will also worsen climate change. Now, another quote, the gas industry says it protects drinking water aquifers from fracking chemicals by encasing drills in multiple layers of steel and concrete and complies with all state and federal laws on fracking and safety. Haha, okay. All right, so breaking this down for a second, what does this exactly mean? This means that wanting to frack in this area, wanting to basically look for natural gas is basically what they're trying to do. Quote, the value, not just the economic but civic and ecological, is many times more than the small amount of gas that is up there, that being the Delaware River Basin. Basically, what we're looking at right now is yet another textbook case of companies, A, deceiving people into thinking that they're doing quote-unquote something good and they're complying. It doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter because these companies actually don't care. They can encase that drill all they want. They can encase that drill until the day they die. I don't care. Okay, if 15 million people rely on that river basin for drinking water, they're not going to touch it. They should not be allowed to touch it. Okay, because fracking has time and time again come back as being a very terrible way to get natural resources, and it should not be used. We need to find other ways to pull resources, or even find, I would say, sustainable ways to do such things. Fracking is not that. And these companies, once again, do not care. They have not cared. We have seen multiple instances in which companies have polluted people's drinking water, given them cancer, given them premature deaths as a result of their greediness into trying to get resources which they can then use and make a ton of profits. None of that profit, by the way, is being seen by any of their workers. So this is all the way around just a bad idea, a bad situation. And we should be fighting for the Delaware River Basin to stay untouched by fracking efforts, because no matter how much natural gas could be in that river basin, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when 15 million people rely on it for drinking water. It doesn't matter when the ecological life of that area relies on that place not being polluted. Because we absolutely know that these companies would not take any measures to actually care for the environment in which deer, foxes, all kinds of little critters and creatures, trees, ecological life cycles, they would not care about this. Because if it means making more money, they're just going to do it. They're just going to do it. They can try to put out as many statements as they want, saying that they're going to do their best and they're going to try to preserve the environment. No, they're not. We need to stop lying to ourselves about this and thinking that this is somehow going to turn out differently. It's not. And trying to find ways through the legal system to say, oh, you can't do this, is a great option. But ultimately, we as people need to come together and say, okay, clearly this is causing more harm than good. There are 15 million comrades out there that rely on this drinking water. We should not allow for these people to be put at risk for how much natural gas exactly? Is natural gas more important than your neighbor's life? That's my question. And if you say yes, you got a lot of reflecting to do. That's all I'm going to say about that. But if you say no, then you should be going out right now. You should be seeking community members. You should be looking at ways that you, on the ground, can educate people, spread awareness. If you're in Delaware right now and you're listening to this, hello, thank you. But if you're in Delaware right now and you're trying to find ways to organize against this. There are people in the world out there. You can reach out to so many organizations via social media, online. Environmental lawyers, for example, are a great pathway into finding NGOs, and also then neighborhood coalitions. That's a big one. Finding people to organize with is the first step. Put yourself out there. You can do this. That's what I tell people when they're like, oh, I want to get into organizing, I just don't know how. It's, first of all, you can organize. We have been told, oh, it's better to just, like rabid individualism has told us, oh, well, you can just do it on your own. Just if no one else is going to do it right, do it by yourself. It's like, that's not true. We come together as communities to make real change. So come together with your community. It's going to be okay, is what I'm saying, because we have each other. And now, moving on to unions. Hello, love me some unions. Okay, so here we have the Fenway Concession Workers Park Strike. I say, quote, from the Associated Press, "Respect the picket line," the union posted. "We know tickets are expensive. We're not asking you to stay away from the home games, but we are asking you to not buy concessions. No purchase of pretzels, pickles, or peanuts inside the ballpark during the home stand." I say, quote, again from the Associated Press, an Aaron Aramac spokesperson said the company has bargained in good faith and is disappointed the union rejected our latest offer and chose to call a strike. My last quote for you on this topic: a Red Sox spokeswoman said after Friday night's game, a full house of 369 people, a full house, it's a lot of people, that the ballpark concessions performed at the expected levels consistent with tonight's sold-out crowd, which basically translates to, we found scabs. If you don't know what a scab is, it's basically when they bring in workers who are willing to come in and do the work for lower pay. And yeah, that's a pretty terrible practice, actually. In fact, here's the breakdown for you on this topic. I know we all love a good organized sporting event. I personally don't, but I mean, if you do, good for you. But when we look at the people who are working these concession stands, who are working with, again, 36,000 people all wanting beer and pretzels and food and crying kids and everything, I would say if you were on the other side of this, you would probably want to be paid a living wage too. Because if that's your job and you enjoy it, you probably don't want to get a second, third, fourth job to be able to pay for living. And so not breaking the picket line and choosing to support the striking workers, I would say going so far as to not go to a game. Because these teams make so much freaking money. We need to support the concession workers of the Fenway Park strike. You can go online to their website and take a look, see what you can do to support them, donate, spread the word, talk about how we can support the concession workers, and make sure that they are not only getting paid a living wage, but getting paid more than a living wage. Because we know for a fact that the people who own these teams, who own, who really make a lot of money in this, are rolling in cash. They have so much money, they probably don't even know what to do with it. And that money should be going to working people, and it's not. And we need to make sure, as a community, that the people of Fenway Park, the concession workers of Fenway Park, are actually getting paid what they are owed. Because I don't know about you, but I think that anyone that's willing to sit out there in the hot sun and sell someone a lukewarm beer at an organized sporting event deserves to be paid all of the money, because that sounds miserable. And it's because they're a working person. They're a person just like us. This is not up for debate. So, okay. Recircling, kind of redoing this. I was going to talk more about a couple other things, like the Beijing heavy rains and the floods and the NPR funding cuts, but we have about 10 minutes left in this section, and I really want to dedicate this 10 minutes, and I will actually be doing an episode on this, but this 10 minutes to the genocide and what's going on in Gaza right now. Like I said, I was going to talk about the Beijing rains, which you absolutely should look that up. It definitely correlates with the climate section of this segment. And basically, it's devastating, and we need to look at this objectively from the climate perspective, as well as these people are struggling and suffering, and we need to, like, the Beijing rains, the floods, it's terrible. And as it stands in Palestine, things are getting worse. People are dying of hunger. Children are dying of hunger. And I want to say people are dying of hunger, not just children, because there are all kinds of people living in the Gaza Strip right now. It's not just kids, it's adults as well. It's aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, cousins, brothers, sisters. People are dying. I think there's like this overemphasis on the fact that it's children to make people more sympathetic to the cause, and I understand that. And whatever gets people to getting on board with, you know, the Free Palestine movement is matters. But ultimately, what I really want people to kind of understand right now is that genocide knows no bounds. Genocide is genocide, period. End of story. And if you're still on the fence, if you're still wondering if you should speak out, let this be your, I guess, sorry, there's like, the gain is like, let this be your signal to say, yes, I do need to speak out. It is not anti-Semitic to say Free Palestine. It is not anti-Semitic to speak out about the genocide, because we are not criticizing Jewish people on the basis of being Jewish. In fact, this isn't even really about Jewish people. This is about Palestinian people. This is about Palestinian people's right to just live. And that shouldn't be up for debate, but apparently it is. It shouldn't be up for debate whether anyone should be allowed to live, because I would like to say this on air 100%. I am against the death penalty. I'm against people being killed by any state for any reason. I don't think that there's any reason why that should be allowed to happen. And quite frankly, the fact that people have sat by for this long, for 21 months at this point, and explained away why the genocide is somehow justifiable, I have to say has been really, really, at the least, disappointing. And I understand if you're someone who's listening today who is for the Free Palestine movement and has been dealing with family and friends who are still shutting themselves out to the idea that the genocide is wholly wrong. I hear you and I see you. I've been struggling a lot with trying to talk to my own family about this situation, because a lot of people want to say, well, it's not my problem. It's not my problem, or this is more complex. No, it's not. And it's not more complex, and it is your problem, because our tax dollars are currently funding the bombs that are being dropped on the heads of Palestinian men, women, and children. Period. I mean, there's no other way to say this. Our tax dollars, the money which we give to the federal government for services which are supposed to be then paid for, which we should be using, that money is being used to go kill Palestinian people for the crime of being Palestinian. And there's been a lot of talk about, well, Hamas shouldn't have blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, Israel just shouldn't be bombing kids and people. This isn't, at this point, if you're looking at this situation and saying, well, Hamas, I don't really care about what you have to say afterwards. Because at this point, anything that Hamas did on October 7th, which, again, was a terrible thing, it was an atrocity, Israel has done 1,000-fold at this point. And there is no world in which this is ever a necessary response to, and not even, this is unconscionable. I was, from Al Jazeera, well, we have this quote that says, Gaza hospitals have recorded 9 new deaths due to starvation and malnutrition over 24 hours, raising the total number of starvation deaths to 122, according to the Enclave's Medical Health Ministry. Now, keep in mind, that was a quote from about, I want to say 5 days ago, so that number has most certainly risen. And we really need to be paying attention. All eyes on Gaza right now. Okay, because this situation has gotten to a point in which it's not just bombs and people being shot for existing. It is weaponized, man-made famine. That's what this is. If you think that the Holocaust was unconscionable, which it absolutely was, it was a terrible event in human history, then you absolutely are required at this point to look at the situation and say, this is unconscionable. This is a stain on human history, the fact that we have let this happen. This genocide has been live streamed for 2 years now. 2 years almost. And it's still in question whether it's a genocide. I think that there's a lot of apathy amongst liberal spaces saying, for example, like how AOC puts it, she decided to vote against an amendment which was introduced by Marjorie Taylor Greene, which would stop all funding to the Iron Dome. Now you may be asking, well, comrade, it was introduced by Marjorie Taylor Greene and she's a ghoul and she's terrible, and like, okay, that's true. That's all true. If it weren't for the fact that, first of all, this amendment was just itself. There was no extra stuff to the amendment. It was literally just stopping funding to the Iron Dome. Second, AOC happens to head a squad, quote unquote, called the Squad in the House, which has Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Al Green, and Summer Lee, all of whom voted in favor of this amendment. She tried to walk it back and say, oh, well, I was voting no on the bill. I wasn't saying... No. Because if Marjorie Taylor Greene is outflanking you on the issue of the genocide, I don't know what else to say at this point. It's truly crazy, I have to say. AOC voted against this amendment because Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced it. And the fact that Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Al Green and Summer Lee, all people who have been calling it a genocide for months now, all people who have been against what's going on, if they were able to vote on this amendment, there is absolutely no reason why AOC shouldn't have as well. Absolutely no reason. None. And this is when liberals who may be listening to this, I really want you to ask yourself, at what point does the Democratic establishment draw a line? And are you willing to go along with that line? Or are you willing to question and say, maybe the line shouldn't be there? Because the fact is that we got to see the bigger picture. We got to see the bigger picture, which is that Palestinian people are being genocided. And the amendment was never going to make it through. It was voted on by 7 people. As a yay. So no, like it was never going to make it through, but it's the fact that she was looking at this from an objective viewpoint of, yes, we should stop sending arms to Israel to beef up their Iron Dome, because it's being used to kill innocent human beings, and Israel is a colonial white supremacist state. It means that ultimately liberal politicians will always fall in line with the Democratic Party when things get too heated for them. And they don't care. And so I really urge you to look at this moment from AOC as a sign that the Democratic establishment has not and will not work. It just won't. And we need to start finding alternative ways to actually make our voices heard, because people like AOC are 100% willing to put out an ad saying, I care about people, I want things to change, and then is 100% willing to turn around and say, yes, Democratic Party establishment, I will fall in line. Yes, sir, yes. AOC is not our savior. If she runs for president in 2028, which I suspect that she probably will try, she is not going to win, because she is, first of all, far too left for the Democratic Party to ever put her up. And second, she is inconsistent, point blank. And it's unconscionable. And so now we are at the end of this segment. I'm going to go ahead and play a little tune for you guys. And up next, we have Comrade Sophia from the American Party of Labor calling in to discuss Lenin. So if you're interested, stick around, stay a while, listen about Lenin for the next 30 minutes once we listen to Dirty Harry by the Gorillaz. Okay. All right. That was Dirty Harry by the Gorillaz, and now I'm going to be calling Comrade Sophia. Give me a second. All right, hopefully this works this time, guys. Let's see.
Hello?
Hello, Comrade. Is this Comrade Sophia?
This is Comrade Sofia.
Okay, Comrade, you are live.
Hello, Radio Free Urbana. I unfortunately can hear myself echoing. Is there a way to prevent that?
Let me see. Does that help?
Let me see. Yes, that's got
Okay.
it.
Okay, awesome. All right. So,
All
Comrade,
right.
welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here tonight.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be on, Comrade.
Yeah. And so give me a breakdown real quick on who the organizations you're part of. I know we're talking about Lenin today, but I know that you are very well read in these things. So I wanted to ask, who are you here representing today?
Oh, sure. So, my name is Sophia. I am a cadre member of the American Party of Labor in the Twin Cities. I'm organized with the Ernst Thälmann division. Ernst Thälmann was one of the leaders of the Communist Party Deutschland, like the German Communist Party, leading up to the Nazi takeover. And we have our division named after him to honor his contributions to Marxist-Leninist theory and his importance to the movement. But yes, so I'm a member of the American Party of Labor. We are an anti-revisionist Marxist-Leninist party. That means that we are explicitly revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
We do not sort of take half measures as our starting point.
Absolutely.
Our main practical goals and our main activities consist of organizing in our communities as well as with other progressive and socialist-oriented organizations. And the purpose of that is to win small concessions from, not necessarily small, big if we can get them, but to win concessions from the bourgeoisie or the capitalist class, or there are a bunch of ways to say it, but the idea is if they have a portfolio and representation in Congress, that's who we're fighting against.
Absolutely. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Awesome, Comrade. Yeah, no, that's a great introduction. And today we're going to be, for viewers who are, or I guess listeners who are just tuning in, today we're going to be talking about one Vladimir Lenin, correct?
Yay.
Yes. Yay, we love
Vladimir
him.
Ilyich Lenin, my beloved.
Lenin, my beloved. Lenin, so baby girl, so gorge. We love you.
So gorgeous.
And so just for a little bit of background on our sweet king, Mr. Lenin, he's not a king, he's a fellow comrade, I guess. I shouldn't say king. He was born actually in Western Russia on April 22nd, 1870. His original name, I'm not going to try to pronounce. If you can, comrade, give it a try.
Let me search it up first.
Yeah, it's like Ilyich Ulyanov.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah.
Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov.
Yes, and he studied law and began practicing it on August 4th in 1892, and his father died and his brother was executed by the Tsar in 1887 and 1886, respectively. And so, as we discuss Lenin, comrade, what comes to mind for you when we talk about Lenin, his theory, him as a revolutionary and as a leader?
Yeah, so there's so much about Lenin. It would be impossible to cover him in an hour or 2 hours or
even 3
years of study.
Right.
Even 3, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of going to take my cues from you on where to focus and what to focus on about him. But if we're talking really big, really important, because Lenin, I think to most people, he's someone we sort of associate with Russia, with the Soviet Union,
right?
Sort of
Russian
as this meme figure of someone who, maybe you've heard a little bit about Lenin's testament, like his supposed opposition to Stalin.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've heard about some measure of Lenin the dictator, the anti-democrat.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about Lenin as if he was some kind of dictator looking to take over, or as if he was I had miscorrectly talked about him as a king.
Yeah.
and this
So,
is just incorrect.
yeah. So if that's not this sort of popular image we have of Lenin, whether as exclusively a Russian figure, or as a hero to be worshipped, all of this is it's practically verging on myth. It has no basis in reality.
Right.
Lenin, there's a quote from a Langston Hughes poem, I believe it was Langston Hughes, of Lenin walks the world. Lenin is a figure of international importance. Lenin
He is. He's an international comrade.
Yes, yeah. And so what, like, so there's multiple aspects to this, right? Is that he defended and deepened the revolutionary spirit and the revolutionary tactics, which Marx and Engels had introduced. He elaborated the theory of the dictatorship of the proletariat, which is a big, scary word, which we might or might not get to. He described what Engels and Marx had already begun to sort of observe by the end of their life, but which hadn't really manifested as a phenomenon in capitalism, which is modern imperialism. And I specify modern because these capitalist powers had begun to create trading empires, to create trading posts, and that, of course, created the basis of the Atlantic slave trade, of the colonization of America.
Period.
But this is not the same thing as modern imperialism. It has a different economic motivation and a different economic content.
Say it, comrade.
Lenin, in his analysis, which I believe was based on someone called Hobson, but in his analysis of the economic roots of imperialism, of the development in capitalism that had occurred between Marx's time and his, he was able to identify why America began closing the West, why it began more intense invasions of the indigenous nations, why Russia began a more concentrated campaign of extermination against the Siberian people, why the capitalist states of Western Europe raised whole armies for, I don't know if we can say the word on the air, but the assault of Africa,
yes.
the division of Africa.
Yes.
These phenomenon in terms of national oppression, in terms of colonization, these were the result of an objective economic process which had occurred within capitalism in the countries where it existed, where it had sort of previously capitalism had been a matter of competition between individual firms.
Right.
But as those firms had been linked up into these great companies, and then eventually these cartels, or with the introduction of financial capital, of bank capital, these kind of
like banks, for example.
Where industry became controlled by banks. This process was accompanied by the struggle for the division of the world. And this is actually a small myth about Lenin's theory of imperialism, is that Lenin's analysis never included the idea that capitalist countries would fail if they could not imperialize another country. This was sort of Luxemburg's idea that countries did imperialism because capitalism was failing. What Lenin instead recognized was that imperialism was just the result of capitalism having reached a certain point of development, and it was a regular part seeking of profits, right?
Yeah,
And so
he wrote a whole book about this, in fact.
yes, yeah, imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. So monopoly prices, the destruction of political rights, the sort of there's so many aspects of capitalist imperialism, which or the creation of a like privileged strata of opportunists and representatives of the bourgeoisie in the working class movement. All of these things were things which Lenin described organically.
Mm-hmm.
And organically is important there because these, like Marx and Engels, these weren't ideas which floated down to him and which were just sort of eclectically applied, but it was developed as an organic and connected theory of capitalism as it had emerged in the 20th century.
Right.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, no, I think that it's really interesting how Lenin developed his theory of imperialism as an expansion, as you've talked about, upon what Marx and Engels were already talking about, but from the perspective of the fact that this is how capitalism transforms. You know, it's not a stagnant kind of thing. And this kind of, I feel like, from what I was talking about last week, I was talking about dialectical materialism. And the fact that there are no absolutes. Things are always changing, and I feel like capitalism is no different. And when we're looking at the material aspects of like how imperialism works, I'd be interested to know about how you would connect that to dialectical materialism, if you're interested in talking about that.
Yeah, I can. Can I return to that just to finish up my point about like Lenin? Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Lenin played all of these important roles in the sort of the bringing of Marxism into the modern era, that is the imperialist era. So he worked out the strategies and tactics for working class revolution in the imperialist era. He also played a huge role in defining the types. When we say tactics, we're talking about organization. We're talking about a particular type of organization, which is sort of in the same way that the bourgeoisie, the capitalist class, they have their organizations. They have the army. They have the bourgeois government, the Congress and the Senate. The same way they have their government agencies, and the same way they have their police, especially their law enforcement agencies.
Right.
In the same way that they have these modern organizations, which are organized for efficiency and which work out the disputes between different sections of the bourgeoisie, we, the working class, require the same level of modern organization. Mm-hmm. And that type of organization, which is based on a scientific understanding of the principles of scientific understanding of capitalism, a scientific understanding of socialism, and of the political strategy required to take power.
Right.
These are the things which Lenin really, really worked out, and which in his working out and in his debate with other either like people who fail to see the same conclusions or who actively distracted from the tasks at hand, he worked out this practice and application of Marxism, which, apologies, would come to be known as Leninism, as Marxism-Leninism specifically.
Right.
And so Lenin's importance, if we're taking a world scale, is that he, worked out these strategies and these tactics into general principles that could be applied universally, but could be applied to the concrete conditions in each country. so that, there's not a country in the world today where Marxism-Leninism does not apply and where it cannot be used as a weapon of the proletariat in conquering power. So that's the importance of Lenin. Lenin isn't just a figure to sort of like LARP about or put over your edits of the USSR national anthem. Lenin isn't.
I love those though.
Lenin isn't someone to just like think of as a personality to maybe a lot of people have a sort of perspective on Soviet history of, oh, this was just a bunch of personality or power conflict, and neither really apply to or capture what Lenin was and who he was and what his importance is. And the same applies pretty damn well to Stalin, but that's sorry. Pretty darn well to Stalin, but that's not
getting a little ahead of ourselves.
The focus of the episode.
Wink, wink. We're talking about Stalin next week, so if you're interested, tune in. We'll be having Grover Furr on if you're interested in learning about Mr. Stalin. But today, when we're talking about Lenin, I wanted to ask you, comrade, I wanted to talk about a specific event when we're talking about Lenin, which is when the Bolsheviks did a democratic election. And there is so much discourse around, they decided to dissolve the government after they lost
the provisional government.
The provisional government, which of course we all know was actually just there for petite bourgeois and bourgeois power. Like they were not actually like the provisional government was not actually representing working people. Like let's be so real. First of all, second, what are some common myths about that event, and how can we better contextualize it?
Oh Lord, comrade, you've caught me in a bind. So I'm no Lenin expert.
I just want to know your perspective on this as someone who as leftists we have to do so much debunking because people are so propagandized to think a certain way about communists and communism, which is just not true. Let's
break it down sort of in principle. So the provisional government, as far as I remember, and you might have to correct me on this, was established as one of the governing bodies which took the place of the Tsarist apparatus after the February Revolution.
After he decided to just not be king anymore. I'm pretty sure he was just like, all right, I'm done. The Tsar, I mean.
Oh yeah.
He abdicated.
Maybe, yeah. I don't have that particular.
Yeah, no, I'm.
Hold on, but to continue.
Right.
So this government was of what we call a bourgeois Republican model, right? Mm-hmm. So it had delegates from different areas of the USSR, and those delegates overwhelmingly consisted of representatives of the bourgeois parties and the petty bourgeois parties.
Much like our current government.
Our current government consists of representatives of the imperialist bourgeoisie by and large, but
we digress. But yes,
we digress. Yeah, and the policies of these parties, these were elected in a largely peasant, a largely petty bourgeois, not largely, but a country with a growing proletariat. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, the turnout for these elections, while pretty solid, was pretty solid by standards of having just come out of feudalism.
Right.
If I remember correctly, it was represented mostly by petty bourgeoisie, peasants, etc. Because the Soviets existed. And the Soviets were workers' councils. They're a very particular type of organization, a sort of proto-state organization that has sort of been a lot of the model for how communists have conducted their work in other countries. But these workers' councils or Soviets, were the governing body of if I remember correctly. I believe these were the governing bodies of particular areas.
Yeah.
And so especially urban areas where the proletariat is strong. This is where I really need someone to fact check me, because I'm pulling this from very dusty history books. And so the Soviets were the main avenue for political participation by the working class. Why is it important that the working class should have the final say here?
Right.
It's because under the capitalist republic that was going to be formed, the small producers, the individual producers, become a sort of doomed class. They shrink in size. They shrink in their independence. A lot of sort of so-called independent producers today are somewhere between glorified worker, if you're a contractor, this is often the case, and debtor to banks. So these, this is a classism economic kind of category which doesn't have a future. It doesn't have an existence in modern capitalist society, and it doesn't have an existence in the future socialist society. So its political views, its political program are going to correspond to reactionary views, which are going to make demands to preserve the old way of things, to preserve the old society in certain ways.
Yeah, it's just there to basically make people who don't want to be made uncomfortable by a revolution to keep them comfortable, essentially, saying, oh, well, now we're doing representation, but not really.
So the working class, which was, marginally represented in the provisional government, its main avenue of political expression was the Soviets. And so there was this old, it is a bit of a just so story the way I'm about to tell it, but there was this slogan, all power to the Soviets, that had existed as kind of an agitational slogan to get, to explain the political program of socialism to people, that we want to transfer all political power to these workers' organizations, to these democratic organizations.
Exactly. And for context, organizing was very different back then, mainly because a lot of peasants, not saying that these people were stupid at all, but education was not readily available to people, learning, it was, for people who were poor, these people were not being formally educated. So organizing was much different back then.
That's true, but we have to remember also that the main one of a huge activity of the Communist Party was literacy campaigns before and especially after the revolution, and also that distributing and reading newspapers, specifically political newspapers, was a huge activity. And it was the basis of the creation of not only sympathetic cells to the communist movement, but of the Communist Party itself. The work required to distribute and print and create reading circles for these newspapers was a huge and massive foundational piece.
And regardless of how and regardless of how educated someone was, they could still use their skills that they had acquired over just their lifetime to support the workers' movement, regardless of how much theory they had read, regardless of how many political papers they had read. They were still supporting in some other way, because that's what working people do. That's what we do, is, we find a way to support each other with the skills that we already have and to learn new ones together.
Yeah. So, and just keeping an eye on the time here to answer the question, when Lenin put out the call, take this old slogan, all power to the Soviets, and turn it into a slogan of action to actually transfer all power to the Soviets, to break up the provisional government, it was a political action which was opportune, because I was before the provisional government had coalesced into a powerful political power or more enough of a powerful political power. So, they weren't facing quite the same problem that we have of a massive, organized, modern military-equipped, bourgeois organization, capitalist organization.
And I'd like to add just quickly onto that. The fact is that even though a democratic election was held, that doesn't mean that working people were actually represented. That doesn't mean that working people were actually even able to vote. And so when people try to say, oh, well, the Bolsheviks just got mad and decided to overthrow the provisional government because they didn't get enough votes, that's also because, the way in which voting was set up was not necessarily for working people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the decision to sort of take that revolutionary step, it was not an anti-democratic step. It was a step in favor of more direct democracy, of
Actual
a deeper democracy, which encompassed the democratic organizations of the Soviets and, put at the head of the government and the sort of work of managing society, those elements, those most progressive elements, those not just educated but educating, those elements connected deeply with the needs and requirements of the working people and the poor farmers. This is an important part, is that in the Soviet Union, as a semi-colonial country, part of the Soviets represented not just workers but also poor farmers. So the government was an alliance of the working class and poor peasantry.
That was such a good answer. We're getting up on time here, Comrade, but I really love the way you answered that, and I'd love to have you on for more segments like this to just discuss this history because it is so important.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I loved the first episode, and I'm excited to see more. I'm especially excited for that Stalin episode.
Yes.
Grover Fur is incredible.
Absolutely. Tune in for Grover Fur, and thank you so much to Comrade Sophia for tuning in to WRFU 104.5 for this lovely interview. Thank you, Comrade.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Have a lovely day. Bye-bye. All right, comrades, we are coming to the end of the episode. I want to say thank you all for tuning in today, if you were able to, and if not, and you're watching today if you're watching a few days from now on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. This was the Liberation Hour on WRFU 104.5 Radio Free Urbana, and I have one more silly little song to close out the night, my friends. Now, I am not a supporter of the people in the Smiths, but I love this song, so let me have my moment. I'm going to play There Is a Light That Never Goes Out by the Smiths. Thank you so much again for tuning into WRFU 104.5, and have a lovely night. Bye!